Okay, Damiel stance. I got you. Welcome, Bookworms. Today we're going to cover yet another one of Ascendance of a Bookworm's fan favorite characters as I color my favorite illustration of him. Presenting our favorite, Peru cake loving, perpetually single, unlucky in love, best boy Damiel. Who is Damiel? Here's a short rundown. He is a lay noble of the neutral faction. While he is a very loyal and dedicated guard knight with a host of admirable qualities, he is mostly known and loved for his long streak of unfortunate circumstances throughout the series. Not all is gloom and doom, however. Thanks to Mind's final blessing and her compression method, he levels up and now has mana at the Med Noble level. He first appeared in Part 2, Volume 2, Summons from the Knight's Order, when he was one of 2 knights tasked with protecting Mind during the Trombe Extermination mission. His birth season is autumn. He has only one attribute at the time of his baptism, wind. He has brown hair and gray eyes. He is the youngest of 2 sons. He has a married older brother called Heinrich. He is 10 years older than Rosamine and is 20 years old at the time that Rosamine enters the Royal Academy. He is, unfortunately, not at all popular with the girls. He is that one gag character who throughout the series is jealous when other people get married or start a relationship. As a commoner Blue Shrine maiden with an abundance of mana who also happens to have valuable otherworldly knowledge, it is decided that Mind needs a guard to follow her around in the temple and in the lower city in case someone tries to kidnap her. Damiel, a young lay knight, is chosen for the task, in no small part because he needs to make up for the fact that he allowed Shikikoza to harm Mind during the Trombe Extermination incident. That unfortunate event marked the general trajectory that Damiel's story would follow for the rest of the series. In fact, Kazuki-sensei herself said in a fanbook that Damiel is the series' most pitiable character, especially considering that his name, which was originally meant to be Samuel, was misspelled from day one. In spite of his life having had a couple of unfortunate twists and turns, he has a devoted fan base and is justifiably very popular among Ascendance of a Bookworm fans. For Damiel might be a lay noble, but over the course of the series, he displays an admirable amount of character growth. Damiel has plain brown hair and grey eyes. By all accounts, he's pretty much an average fellow. Mine describes him as having the look of someone who is just asking to be bullied. And well, with good reason. Damiel himself admits that his family was considered to be bottom of the barrel, even among lay nobles. So it is no wonder that at the beginning, his whole countenance exuded passivity, since he was the type who was used to people walking all over him. Damiel is the youngest of 2 sons. His older brother is a lay scholar named Heinrich. We also know from untranslated material that both his parents have passed away. He also has a sister-in-law named Julianne and an unnamed niece and nephew. Charming family. Though, let us not forget that in a few years' time, Frida, the guildmaster's granddaughter, is to join this happy family as Heinrich's concubine, and by so doing, becoming a sort of, but not really, sister-in-law to Damiel. Thanks to Rosamine's compression method, Damiel's mana capacity has grown to equal that of a Med Noble, a remarkable feat for a lay noble. As lay nobles have the least amount of mana, they can sense small amounts of mana that go unnoticed by higher-ranking nobles, a skill that is well suited for tracking and scouting. Even though Damiel has leveled up to a Med Noble, he still retains that mana sensitivity. He has honed that ability to such a degree that he can even detect trace amounts of mana that commoners have. In addition to that, due to having grown up with a very small mana capacity, Damiel is very skilled at preserving mana and using precisely the minimum required amount for a task. But his abilities don't end there. Due to coming from a family of scholars, Damiel is quite skilled at paperwork despite being a knight. After going through Ferdinand's demanding training at the temple, his skills even surpassed those of his brother, who is a trained and practicing scholar. Damiel is also a good teacher. His patient style was evident in how he was a key component in helping Angelica raise her grades, and in how he encouraged Feline when she was struggling with Ferdinand's training at the temple. Damiel starts off as a mild-mannered, well-intentioned but weak character who folds when confronted with those of higher rank. He also had the same built-in bias that nobles have toward commoners, thinking that they are inferior to nobles, which was one of the reasons why he did not do absolutely everything in his power to keep 𝙏𝙗𝙖𝙠 away from mine. These flaws would have proved fatal, not just for him but for the rest of his family, had mine not interceded in his behalf. Damiel was thus given a second chance, and as the story progresses, the young lay knight's lack of confidence becomes a thing of the past. He no longer hesitates to take action, nor does he let rank get in the way of his duty. Rosamine has come to find him more and more reliable. Not only did they go through many ordeals together in her shrine maiden days, but once she became a noble, he kept the secret about her commoner past safely and remains the only one of her noble retainers that knows about her humbler origins. He is also the one who is sent to the temple or to the lower city to handle things for her when needed. Despite his lowly status, Damiel is the leader of Rosamine's guard knights, patiently training the younger apprentice knights and organizing all the others during the missions. Yes, even archknights like Cornelius and Leonor are expected to follow his lead. He is such an integral part of the team that Rosamine's one job requirement for any new knights that join her is that they treat him with respect. It is really impressive that our Damiel has grown to such an extent. Unfortunately, he is still somewhat of a gag character in the series. Professionally, he has come a long way, yet he's still somewhat of a dork in other aspects of his life, and is described as being pitiable in that there's absolutely no woman in Ehrenfest who is willing to marry him. Or at least, that's what he thinks. He is much too dense to realize that Feline is super in love with him. On the fateful day when the Trombe extermination went awry, Damiel was just a recent Royal Academy graduate who was looking forward to his first big mission. His life up to that time had been unremarkable. His brother had chosen to be a scholar, so even though Damiel was familiar with scholar work and even helped his brother doing such work at home, he went for another line of work and became a knight. At school, he met a girl from the neighboring duchy of 𝙏𝙝𝙠, and they got engaged. His meeting with mine turned to be a turning point in his life. He treated her kindly, and at least an attempt was made to keep 𝙏𝙗𝙖𝙠 from harming her. But in the end, he backed down at the reminder of his own low status. As a result of this failure, he came narrowly close to facing a very severe punishment and being executed along 𝙏𝙗𝙖𝙠, and his family would have also been severely punished for this, probably even executed as well. Fortunately, he was spared thanks to mine speaking up for him. He did receive pretty severe punishment though. First, he was made to pay a quarter of the cost of replacing mine's ceremonial robes, and he was demoted to an apprentice knight for a year, which also meant a pay cut. Finally, he was made to serve mine at the temple as her guard. Because of this demotion, the engagement with his fiancée from another duchy was cancelled, and he had to go into debt with his brother to pay for the robes. However, Henrik himself was not well off, so the money actually came from Frida's grandfather. Thankfully, when Ferdinand learned that Damiel had experience doing scholar's work, he gave him the opportunity to do extra paperwork in the temple as a side job. While working at the temple, Damiel gained a greater appreciation for mine's innovative products and business sense, and became more open-minded toward commoners. Additionally, he was introduced to Peru cakes, a sweet and fluffy wintertime treat that was invented by mine and which was only served in the temple. During his time guarding mine at the temple, he had the chance to redeem himself. He took great care of mine during spring prayer and when she ventured out into the city. During the final confrontation at the temple, he defended Mine from Count 𝙏𝙏 with everything he had, suffering severe injuries in the process. However, Mine had grown fond enough of Damiel by that time so that when she gave her final blessing, he was among those that received it. Once Rosamine entered noble society, he met and fell in love with fellow guard knight Brigitte, a med noble who was also chosen to guard Rosamine. Their difference in mana capacity prevented their marriage, and as such he requested a year to achieve a similar mana capacity as Brigitte. Ordinarily, this would have been impossible, as he had already surpassed the age when one's mana capacity can still be increased. But Mine's final blessing not only healed his wounds, but also gave him the ability to continue to grow his mana. Because of this, and because she also taught him her mana compression method, he succeeded in reaching his goal. Sadly, this union was not to be. When Brigitte asked him to move to her home province, he declined, as he wouldn't be able to protect Rosamine as her guard knight. In the end, Brigitte resigned her post, married someone else, and moved away. This was very sad. However, the alternative would have been much worse. Should Damiel have accepted the marriage proposal and moved to 𝙏𝙏, he would have come to an early death, as he knew way too many of Rosamine's secrets. Damiel continued to prove himself while serving Rosamine, drawing much jealousy from others who believed that a lay noble like him shouldn't be serving an archduke candidate. But no one can match Damiel. Not only is he a hard worker who also helps out in the temple doing paperwork for Ferdinand, he is also very patient when it comes to training the younger apprentice scholars and knights. And while in the Royal Academy, the Archknights lead the other knights in Rosamine's service, in Aerofest, Damiel is the one that leads and organizes them. Additionally, Damiel is greatly acquainted with the temple, its people, and how it runs, and has memorized all the faces of the Grey Priests at the orphanage. When they were kidnapped, he saw through the fake Grey Priests and stabbed them to death without a moment's hesitation. This was one of the most shocking and memorable Damiel moments of all time. There are a couple of things about Damiel that we all love him for, but the one that always comes to mind is his adorable fondness for sweets, especially Peru cakes. His love for Peru cakes is legendary in the fandom, to the extent that many have jokingly shipped him with Peru cakes as his one and only true pairing, since no one else is viable at this point. As an impoverished lay noble, Damiel hardly ever got to try delicious food, let alone many sweets. However, while serving Mine, he got to try out some of the treats that were served in the temple and the orphanage. Once he tried Peru cakes, he was flabbergasted at how delicious they were, and was even a bit envious of how orphanage children were eating better than some nobles. He liked Peru cakes so much that he always made sure to be at the temple on sunny winter days, since those were Peru days, and he came to regret spring's arrival, since he would no longer be able to enjoy the sweet taste of the Peru cakes he so loved. Damiel's relationship woes all stemmed from his failure during the Trombe extermination mission. Not only did his engagement get cancelled, but the bride wealth he had spent all his savings on was lost. He was demoted, burdened with debt, and had to enter the filthy temple where the discards of noble society ended up. The situation was dire. According to the fan book, in our modern world his situation would be equivalent to that of an ex-convict with no house, no money, and a job he might be fired from at any moment. Is it any wonder that no noble woman in her right mind would contemplate marrying him? Well, there was Brigitte, but she was a special case with circumstances of her own, and who was totally willing to marry someone like Damiel. Marrying her would have been an incredible stroke of luck, as he'd rise in status through marriage. Any other noble would have jumped at the chance. Unfortunately, they failed to communicate what they expected of the other, and while their feelings were the same, their goals didn't align and they had to part ways. To add insult to injury, Elvira went on to publish their tragic love story in one of her wildly popular romance books, so pretty much everyone knew about what had happened between them. After that, it became even harder for Damiel to find someone to marry. He's too lowly for a men noble to stoop down and marry him, and he has too much mana for him to marry a lay noble woman. The situation proved so bad that even the great Lady Elvira, with all her connections, was unable to find someone for him. And he had become extremely sensitive when the topic of marriage, happy couples, and people in relationships came up. He can't help but feel envious of others who find their life's partner. Is it any wonder that he is a pitiable character? Our guy can never catch a break. There is, however, one person who does not see him as a pitiable character, but rather sees him as a knight in shining armor. To her, Damiel is the greatest, the best, and the most amazing. And that person is Feline. She always admired him as a mentor figure, but on the day that she was rescued from her family, he came into the room she'd been locked in, then carried her out, wrapping her in a cloak so she could save face because of the kind of clothes she was wearing at that time. She loved his gentle and considerate nature, and she loved how he never laughed or mocked her because of her situation. And from that moment on, she was smitten. Sadly, Damiel is totally oblivious to Feline's true feelings for him. In fact, he believes that she has a crush on Roderick. He even went so far as to encourage her. So far, Damiel seems to be ignorant of Feline's feelings. Do you think he will finally get a hint at some point? Or will Feline be forced to borrow a page from Clarissa and propose to him a la Dunkelfelder? Or do you think that despite all his shortcomings, there is yet another marriage candidate for Damiel in the future? And speaking of the future, with Matthias and Lawrence coming in to join Rosamine's Guard Knights, do you think they will get along with Damiel just fine, or will there be some kind of friction among them? What are you guys' thoughts about Damiel's character? Are you a fan of Damiel? What do you think of his growth and character development? What are your favorite Damiel moments and memorable lines? Be sure to share your thoughts on the comments, as well as tell me who I should talk about next. Remember, I put a poll every so often, so be on the lookout, and be sure to vote. A special thank you to all of those people who support me by becoming members, and who also contribute to this channel via one-time donations here on YouTube and over on Ko-fi. Each and every contribution means the world to me. Okay, bookworms, that's it for this video. Until next time when we talk about Eglantine, bye bye.